Hey everyone, I'm just trying out some new angles here in my new place to see where I'm gonna make videos. So I'm gonna try, I did one the other day sitting on the couch. Now I'm gonna do one standing kind of at my table in my kitchen. I don't know, maybe we're gonna move it around. We're gonna try different angles and see how it goes. Now I have a video that's coming from a request from someone that DM'd me about hyper-awareness of your thoughts. How to handle those thoughts such as, why do I love my family? Why do I do this? Why do I do that? It's a mixture of existentialism and solipsism. Could be fear of death, not knowing what happens in the afterlife. You could throw some hit of religion in there or moral. You can really throw anything, but it's questioning a lot of things. Why do I do this? Why do I do that? Why do we drink water? How did we learn how to drink water? And mixed in there very well with primarily existentialism, and then the sensory motor aspect of, why is this happening? How do I get this out of my head? So before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below. Remember, Phil at OCDRecovery.com. We can get back to you in a timely fashion. We have the direct WhatsApp link, and then we have the webinars every Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. UK time. And I just realized I'm a slob, and I have some great, I think it's toothpaste. It looks like toothpaste. We're going with it. It's toothpaste. So always great for those shame attacking exercises when you do stuff like that. It's always fun when people are out in public and I'm looking at them and I'm like, do they know that they have dirt all over their face? I'm like, should I tell them? No, I'll let them suffer. So it's a great exposure. Now, sensory motor and hyper-awareness isn't just breathing, blinking, swallowing, saliva, heartbeat. The big five. Those are primarily the bodily functions, which don't need hardly any exposures at all. I would say less than 1%. So 1 out of every 100 people that come in to work with me for sensory motor, which I get a lot of sensory motor because of my journey, need to do any exposures, right? Outward exposures to say they're breathing. You're going to breathe all day. You blink, 27,000 times a day. You swallow how many times a day? Your heart's going to beat, X amount of times a minute. That's how it goes. If you hear the sound, we got Daisy walking around on the tile because it's usually carpet where I do it. So this will be fun, new things in angles. So you got to remember that sensory motor hyper-awareness is just a term. It could be hyper-aware about anything. It could be any single thing that you have a question about. And on top of that, you can question any single thing at all. Why do we have laptops? Where did they come from? Why does it do this about our families? Why does this happen? Why does that happen? It's going to go for, especially with existentialism, it's going to go for the big questions. How did I get here? Why am I here? So there's an uncertainty aspect about those questions where you're never going to actually be able to have an answer to those. That's so important. Oh, there's Milo right there. You're never going to be able to have an answer to those questions. That's the most important thing to remember. You're going to have to let those intrusive thoughts be there whenever, wherever. There are no proper exposures for these type of fear patterns. The only exposure that there is not avoiding anything in your life. So you're living life on your terms exactly as you would, whether OCD is there or not, at whatever intensity and suffering is present. That's the most important thing to remember. Whatever intensity, however frequent, living your life. If you want to make YouTube video and you're a content creator, you got to do that. If you go to work as a lawyer and you work 12-hour days, you got to do that. No matter how bad your OCD is, you're not going to get that right off the bat, but that's the long-term goal to lead up to. The biggest mistake that people are making is, as I said, how do I expose myself to this? Well, you have to live your life exactly how you would, whether it's there or not. This is covered completely incorrectly. It's very easy to misunderstand the latching mechanisms of hyper-awareness of your consciousness and your thoughts, especially when the existential is built in there. Because if you're not looking at the core fear, which is, even if I don't have answers to these thoughts, well, there's a couple different core fears. Even if I don't have answers to these thoughts, look at her head right there. Okay, you want the door open? Come on, let's open the door for you. Yeah, this is what so I'm still learning this as well because we don't have a backyard anymore. Go out there, be free. This dog is, I always say this stuff used to drive me bonkers, but this is the reality of life. This is how life goes, especially if you have kids. I can only imagine interrupting you. Jay does great stuff on this. So those questions, the core fear is, even if I don't have an answer to these questions, it's not the end of the world. I can allow these intrusive thoughts, regardless of their intensity, be present without having an answer to them. The more you're trying to solve the answer to these things, the bigger problems you're going to have long-term when it comes to OCD and anxiety recovery. Then the other part is that there's a DPDR physical disconnection, disassociation, dizziness, vestibular issue. You have to be careful about how compulsive you're being when it comes to seeing people, maybe for vestibular rehab, not inherently good or bad. We have to see what's going on. You have to be careful of constantly looking up tips and tricks to get out of those sensations. So inside of that hyper awareness of, I'm having these thoughts, how do I love my mom, or how did I learn to breathe, or all those things, those have to be there. The risk of taking them everywhere as you're breaking down the core fears, which are, if I notice these thoughts in my consciousness for the remainder of my life is ruined. That's number one. Number two, if I don't have an answer to these questions, and they're usually questions that you value. I put no value on why am I here. Doesn't matter why I'm here. I put no value on what happens in the afterlife. I like speaking about it. I love speaking about existentialism and religion, but I have no desire to figure that out. I don't mind not knowing that answer, which is one of the biggest fears for people with death, not knowing what happens in the afterlife. I believe when you die, nothing happens. I don't even remember this, which is such a crazy concept to think about. Boom, blows my mind to even think about that. So, and it's very understandable about why people are afraid of these things. So you have to, again, get comfortable with the actual thoughts, get comfortable with not finding an answer, and then breaking down that even if they were there on law for the remainder of your life, even if you could not have an answer to these things, it still wouldn't be the end of the world. That is one of the most important things to remember that you break down with the Ellis principles in the book. I have a one-to-one here in 5 minutes, so I had to squeeze this in, so you see me looking at the time over there. And remember, it's so important that you're not going to be able to get underneath any fear at the chronic level without unconditional acceptance, but you're certainly not going to be able to just leave this there and be okay with it, especially if it's a moral related thoughts that are coming in. Why do I love my mom? Why do I love my kids? Why aren't I a serial killer? Why aren't I this type of bad person? Why aren't I that person? How do I do this action? So there is a moral aspect as well that people are getting very afraid of, where morality is strictly a belief, a consensus belief. No matter what anyone's saying, there's no proof otherwise. Because what I view as good, even though the consensus of the majority of Americans in this culture in 2024 is very different than China 1,000 years ago. So morality is constantly changing. There is no such thing as a universal morality, no matter what anyone says. So you're going to have to break that down as well. But that's a talk for a different conversation. It's very easy to break that down when you look at it. There are things that produce better results, better morality as a society, but it doesn't mean it's the correct way from a universal principle, or else every culture on earth would be that way. And if you went against it, you would just burst into a ball of flames, which doesn't happen, to my knowledge. So that's how you actually break this down. So let's do a summary. You have to get comfortable with the questioning of the thoughts, wearing the uncertainty, key part. Exposures are not really needed. Living your life on your term, bring it for the ride, bring it everywhere is so important. And then on top of that, you have to break down the worst case scenario. Even if I notice this for the remainder of my life, it's not the end of the world. And that is how you slowly chip away at this. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember, phil@ocdrecovery.com. Let me know what you think of this. Hope to hear from you soon. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day. We thank you for all the support. If you have any recommendations for videos down below, I have lists that I have, and I take stuff from what people want, and I go from there. Have a good one, everyone.